The Samoyed sat perfectly still every single afternoon while the toddler pointed and giggled at him. When Emma finally looked closer at what her daughter was showing them, her blood turned to ice. For weeks, they'd thought it was an adorable game between best friends, an innocent ritual of childhood joy. One afternoon, Emma knelt beside them both, following the exact trajectory of her daughter's tiny finger, and saw the chalky white residue coating the dog's shoulder fur. What she discovered in that moment was so shocking it would haunt her for the rest of her life. Before watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another heart-gripping story like this one. Emma had always considered herself a careful mother. She checked labels, researched products, kept the house meticulously clean. Her daughter Lily, just 2.5 years old, was her entire world. And their Samoyed, Bear, had been part of their family since before Lily was born, a gentle giant who'd appointed himself her protector from the moment they brought her home from the hospital. Every afternoon around 3 o'clock, like clockwork, Lily would toddle over to Bear in the living room. The massive white dog would sit down immediately, as if on cue, his tail sweeping slowly across the hardwood floor. Then Lily would point at him and dissolve into peals of laughter, that pure, uninhibited giggling that only toddlers can produce. She'd bounce on her feet, point again, laugh harder. "She's telling him secrets," Emma's husband David would say, smiling from the kitchen. "Look at them. It's their special time." Emma had thought the same thing. It was impossibly cute, this daily ritual. She'd taken dozens of videos, sent them to family members, posted a few on social media. Everyone commented on how sweet it was, how Lily and Bear had such a special bond. But something about it had started bothering Emma, though she couldn't articulate what. Bear's stillness, maybe. The way he panted softly, his dark eyes moving between Lily and Emma, back and forth, back and forth. The way he wouldn't move until Emma or David acknowledged them, actually looked over and smiled. "He's so patient with her," her mother had said during a video call, watching Lily point and laugh at Bear on the screen. Most dogs would walk away from a toddler pestering them like that. Pestering. The word stuck with Emma. Was Lily pestering him? She didn't pull his fur or poke him roughly. She just pointed. Always at the same spot, Emma realized one afternoon. Always at his left shoulder. "David, have you noticed Lily always points at the same place?" Emma asked that evening while loading the dishwasher. He glanced up from his laptop, distracted. "What?" "When she does her pointing thing with Bear, it's always his shoulder, his left shoulder." David shrugged. "Kids fixate on weird things. Remember when she only wanted to wear the purple socks for like 3 weeks straight? This feels different. She's 2. She probably likes how the fur looks there, or she's practicing her pointing, or who knows what goes on in their little heads." He turned back to his screen. It's harmless. It's cute. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling. The next afternoon, she watched more carefully. Lily toddled over right on schedule. Bear immediately sat, his posture rigid, attentive. Lily pointed, giggled, looked at Emma expectantly. Bear's eyes followed Lily's finger, then moved to Emma's face, waiting. "What is it, baby?" Emma asked, walking closer. "What are you showing Mommy?" Lily pointed more emphatically, bouncing. "Bear! Bear funny!" Emma knelt down, really looking for the first time, following the exact line from Lily's finger to Bear's shoulder. The afternoon sunlight streaming through the window caught something on his fur, a discoloration, a patch of white that wasn't quite the same white as the rest of his pristine coat. She reached out and touched it. Her fingers came away dusty, chalky. A fine white powder clung to her fingertips. "David!" Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "David, come here!" He appeared in the doorway, concern creasing his face. "What's wrong?" "Look at this." She held up her fingers, then touched Bear's shoulder again, showing him the residue. "There's something on his fur, some kind of powder." David knelt beside her, examining Bear's shoulder more closely. The dog remained perfectly still, his breathing slightly faster now. "What the hell is that?" Emma's mind raced. Powder, white powder, chalky. Where would Bear have gotten into something like that? She kept all cleaning products locked away. They didn't use pesticides in the house. They barely used anything toxic at all. Then it hit her. The barrier. "Oh my God," she whispered. "The Hendersons' pest barrier." 2 weeks ago, their next-door neighbors, the Hendersons, had hired a company to install some kind of industrial pest control system around their property line. Emma had seen the workers in hazmat-style suits applying something along the fence. She'd even commented to David that it seemed excessive for suburban pest control. "That stuff they sprayed next door," she said, her voice rising. "Bear must have brushed against the fence. David, those workers were wearing protective gear. Full protective gear." David's face went pale. "Jesus, what kind of chemicals require hazmat suits?" Emma was already pulling out her phone, her hands shaking. "I'm calling poison control now." "Wait, maybe we're overreacting," David started, but Emma cut him off. "Our daughter has been touching him, then putting her hands in her mouth like toddlers do. For weeks, David. For weeks he's been trying to show us." The words hung in the air like smoke. Bear's strange stillness, his insistent waiting, the way he sat perfectly positioned every afternoon, presenting his shoulder like evidence. Lily's pointing, not playing, but showing them, trying to communicate what she couldn't articulate. The strange spot on her friend. Emma's call to poison control turned into a frantic conversation. The operator's voice shifted from routine to urgent when Emma described the industrial pest barrier and the hazmat suits. "Ma'am, I need you to tell me exactly what the substance looks like. Is it a white crystalline powder? Does it have any odor?" "It's chalky, white, no smell that I can detect." "Has your daughter exhibited any symptoms? Rash, difficulty breathing, nausea, lethargy?" Emma's throat closed. She looked at Lily, who was sitting on the floor, playing with blocks. Normal. Happy. But how many times had she touched Bear? How many times had those little hands gone from his fur to her mouth? "She's been a little more tired than usual," Emma heard herself say. "I thought it was a growth spurt, and there was a rash on her hands last week, small, red bumps. I used lotion, and it seemed to get better." "Ma'am, I'm going to connect you with emergency services. I need you to remain calm, but based on what you're describing, this could be exposure to a banned industrial compound. These substances were prohibited for residential use specifically because of toxicity risks, especially to children and animals." The room tilted. Emma grabbed David's arm. "They're sending an ambulance." The next hours blurred into a nightmare of sirens, questions, examinations. Paramedics in the living room, checking Lily's vitals, asking about symptoms. Animal control arriving to assess Bear, taking samples of the powder from his fur. A hazmat team at the Hendersons' fence, testing the barrier compound. At the emergency room, a doctor with kind eyes but a grave expression examined Lily thoroughly. Emma sat in a plastic chair, David's hand crushing hers, while they waited for blood test results. "The good news," the doctor finally said, "is that we caught this early. Your daughter shows minimal absorption. The exposure was primarily dermal, through contact with the dog's fur, and it appears she didn't ingest significant amounts." "And the bad news?" David's voice was barely audible. "The compound used by your neighbors is hexafluoron-based, an industrial termiticide that was banned for residential application in 2019. It's highly toxic with cumulative effects. Another few weeks of exposure, especially for a child her size, and we'd be looking at serious neurological complications, potentially permanent." Emma's world collapsed. The room spun. She couldn't breathe. "If it hadn't been for your dog," the doctor continued, "if you hadn't noticed when you did, this would be a very different conversation. Animals often show us what we can't see ourselves. Their instincts are remarkable." Bear. Bear had known. For 2 weeks, he'd sat patiently every afternoon, presenting the evidence, waiting for them to understand. And Lily, in her toddler wisdom, had tried to show them too. The strange spot on her friend. They kept Lily overnight for observation and started her on a chelation protocol to remove any absorbed toxins. Bear was treated at an emergency veterinary clinic, his thick fur shaved around the contaminated area, his system flushed and monitored. The Hendersons were horrified when they learned what happened. The pest control company had apparently used banned substances without disclosure, a fact that would later result in criminal charges. But in that hospital room, none of that mattered to Emma. When they finally brought Lily home the next evening, Bear was already there, released from the vet with a clean bill of health and a ridiculous-looking shaved patch on his shoulder. The moment they walked through the door, Lily wiggled out of Emma's arms and toddled straight to him. "Bear!" she cried, throwing her small arms around his neck. Bear, okay? The dog, who'd been lying by the door waiting, stood and gently licked her face. His tail wagged slowly, his eyes moving to Emma's. Emma knelt beside them both, tears streaming down her face. She wrapped her arms around Bear's neck, burying her face in his fur. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry we didn't understand. You were trying to tell us. You were protecting her. David joined them on the floor, his hand on Bear's head. You saved her, buddy. You saved our little girl. For weeks afterward, Emma would wake in the night thinking about how close they'd come, how easily she could have dismissed it entirely, how Lily's pointing could have remained just a cute game until it was too late. The doctor's words echoed constantly. Another few weeks, permanent neurological damage, a very different conversation. She'd also learned that Bear had likely been deliberately rolling in the contaminated area, absorbing more of the substance himself to draw their attention. The veterinarian had said the pattern of exposure suggested repeated contact, as if he'd been testing it, understanding something was wrong, trying to make it obvious enough for the humans to notice. Now, every afternoon around 3 o'clock, Lily still went to Bear, but instead of pointing and laughing, she hugged him. And Bear, his fur grown back pristine white over the shaved patch, would rest his head on her shoulder and close his eyes. Patient, protective, forever vigilant. Emma had stopped taking their bond for granted. She'd stopped assuming she understood everything in her carefully controlled world. Because the truth was, the greatest danger had been invisible, brought into their lives by people they trusted to know better. And the only guardian standing between her daughter and disaster had been the one she'd almost dismissed as just playing along with a toddler's game. Sometimes the line between life and loss is guarded not by our vigilance or our careful planning, but by the instincts of those we least expect to understand the danger. What we cannot see, what hides in plain sight, wearing the disguise of normalcy, can only be revealed by those who perceive the world differently than we do. Wisdom isn't always human. Protection doesn't always come with words. And sometimes the most important messages are delivered not through language, but through patience, persistence, and the unwavering faith that eventually we will see what they've been trying to show us all along. If this story shook you, if it made you look at the world a little differently, don't forget to like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us what really matters. Share it with friends and family, because sometimes the smallest gestures, the ones we almost overlook, are the ones that save everything we hold dear.